Good morning. Welcome to Sociology of Race and Ethnicity. This is the fourth part of the last chapter, that is social stratification. The concept of race refers to the physical characteristics, while ethnicity refers to the cultural features that may be handed down from one generation to another generation through the process of socialization. Many groups such as American blacks, Indians have been discriminated racially and definitely ethnically. The most people in the society are actually being the victims of race. For most people, such as there are various groups who are regarded in various forms which may consider them as ethnic groups, and they can be distinguished from the other bulk of the population by their physical characteristics. For example, the Germans and the Polish Americans are physically indistinguishable, but the members of the two groups may be distinct based on their subculture and the ethnic background. From the sociological point of view, ethnic group is a category of people who are the result of their shared cultural heritage regarded as socially distinct. Well, we will talk about some of the important thing like racial prejudice. Whether racial prejudice can be eliminated or still it is there is something which is a matter of controversy. But again, there are several things which it involves like greater economic opportunity, extension from free schooling, legal abolition of principle of segregation and many more. Well, let us talk about race as a part of a sociological understanding. Okay, race is a sociological concept, it is biological and anthropological. There are several things like culture, civilization and race which are studied altogether. Racialism is a practice which has been not a recent phenomena but something which is being studied in the matter of sociology long back. So, there are several characteristics, physical characteristics which are considered to be superior, several physical characteristics which are considered to be inferior. For example, all throughout the history, the blacks are being considered as physically inferior compared to the white groups. Now, there are huge difference between the race and ethnicity because race is a biological entity whereas ethnicity is a cultural entity, which means on the basis of someone's physical feature, someone is considered to be belonging to a particular race, while based on the subculture, based on the ancestry, cultural heritage, it is ethnicity. So, we know by now there are a fine line of difference between race and ethnicity. However, there are several characteristics of racialism at the same time, which means firstly there has to be a concept of superiority and inferiority associated with it. But what are the causes of it? The idea of prejudice is nothing but something that developed from the two features. The first is the physiobiological factors and the second is the environmental factors. We will learn about this in a greater detail when we will talk about this in class. Let us learn about the several factors. First is ethnocentrism, which means you will consider your culture is better compared to someone else's culture. Then cultural relativism, which means that we will judge our culture on the basis of others or vice versa. Okay. So, this is something when you are imposing a judgment on others' culture, and that is where the idea comes in. There are differences between ethnocentrism and cultural relativism, and we will learn this in a greater detail after we discuss them in class. Well, along with this, we will now have a fine line of difference between the two. If you observe the PPT over here, you can observe the fine line of difference between the two where everyone has a perspective about their own culture, and whereas in ethnocentrism the other individual may consider it to be normal, in case of cultural relativism people will consider to be it better. Along with this, there are several factors like economic interest, political interest, which are associated with the concept of racialism, which are associated with the concept of racial prejudice as well as ethnocentrism. So, overall, this idea is interrelated. Okay, and this where everyone thinks to be a foreigner is nothing but xenophobia. This is something which you need to learn when you will be dealing with it. Thank you. We will continue this in the class.